So we can get started. So good afternoon, everyone. If you're based in Europe, and I guess good morning if you're not based in Europe or somewhere else. And welcome to this causal webinar, which we've termed Hedonistic Sustainability in Action. And I'm really pleased to be joined with Elena Doms, who's going to be our guest speaker today. Hey, Elena.
Hello, everyone. Good seeing you.
Nice. So a few house rules before we get started. The session is being recorded and you will receive a recording of it once the webinar is over. So don't panic if you need to jump off early. Um, your video is automatically off, so we can't see you. Your microphone is also muted, so we can't hear you. So the best way to contact us is through the Q&A feature within Zoom. So please make use of that as much or as little as you would like. I want to start off by introducing Elena. So Elena is a sustainability expert and keynote speaker. You're also CEO at Earth Plus, and I believe you are helping regenerate soils and also create construction materials from plant matter. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Which is pretty cool. And I think you've been using hemp quite a bit recently. Is that correct?
Yes, hemp is definitely one of the materials. It's a wonder crop.
Nice. You're also a LinkedIn top voice, so you have over 100,000 followers, which is amazing. I don't know how you did that. It's really, really good. And you were previously the Director of Strategy, Finance and Sustainability at MasterCard, which is a huge remit, by the way.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, okay, good. Good. I'm glad you agree. Is there anything else you want to add now, Eleanor, about yourself?
Well, thank you very much, Steph, for the introduction. It was really good. Hello, everyone. I'm indeed the CEO at Earth Plus. We are nature tech for companies and cities, and we help them restore land and turn buildings into carbon sinks through carbon negative materials. I did work with over 100 businesses and led sustainability initiatives at MasterCard, and then I quit my corporate job in search for impact. And over the last years, we won major impact startup awards. We invited to speak at COP16. Had two Belgian prime ministers join our project, which was really fun and hedonistic. And at the moment, we're working on carbon negative materials. And our big game is indeed to turn construction and cities into carbon sinks. And originally, I was born and raised in the Arctic.
That's right. Thank you very much. I also want to put a little bit of a spotlight on Causal, who are hosting this webinar. So we're a software for cities and municipalities, and our software helps you do two main things. It helps you monitor the progress of your climate action plan, and it also helps you forecast your future emissions. And we're currently supporting over 100 cities worldwide. So that's pretty cool. We'd obviously love to support more. So if you know any cities that would benefit from working with us, then you can reply to the webinar emails actually, because they'll come to my inbox. That's the promo side out of the way. We can get into the actual topic now. Oh, no, we can't. Don't lie. I wanted to cheekily use this opportunity for you to follow us on LinkedIn. So there's a QR code there. I'm going to hold it there for about 20 seconds or so. But if you're not following us on LinkedIn, then please make sure you do. We try our very best to give some climate action insight in our posts and in our content. So it's not just marketing. We're trying to give as much value as possible. I promise.
It's a good trade-off to follow you on LinkedIn for participating in this webinar.
Thank you. Thanks, Elena. Okay, now we can jump into the questions themselves. So, could you start off by telling us about your journey in sustainability?
I can. My journey in sustainability started in the Arctic. Someone called me an Arctic child. I lived in the polar nights and in winters with minus 30 degrees, where instead of bridges across the rivers, you have ice as infrastructure. I also lived in polar days in summer when there is constant sunshine, even at 1 o'clock or at 4 o'clock in the morning. And when I was 3 years old, my parents bought a small piece of land to embark on a crazy risky journey of Arctic agriculture. Call it crazy risky because you never know what you're going to get. And that's how my journey started. Because of where I grew up and because Arctic is warming up 4 times faster than the rest of the planet, the change that I'm seeing now over 30 years is very dramatic. Winters are now -7, -10 degrees, or even zero. The river doesn't freeze, so people cannot cross it because the river is basically a bridge. Summers are much hotter and drier than they used to be, and that's something that really motivated me and actually was the last final straw for me to quit my corporate career and search for impact.
Mhm.
Um, when I was a student, I was already studying soils and lands and superweeds. And then I moved to Belgium to work in social sustainability. I worked at MasterCard, understood how technology and digital transformation can facilitate sustainability journey. And then a few years ago, I met my colleague, Frederick Verstraete, who is the CEO at Biotech, who came up with a business model for land regeneration and turning buildings into carbon sinks at the same time. And I fell in love with the idea so much that I thought there is nothing else I want to be doing. Um, and here we are now.
Wow, that's amazing. I already have a follow-up question, which is off script, Elena, believe it or not. But
Uh-oh.
how did sorry, but how do you turn buildings into carbon sinks?
So if you look historically, actually, there is this beautiful graph, Peter. I haven't shared it with you before. But if you look at how the humanity is progressing until 1950s, it was emission-wise and construction-wise pretty steady progress. And then after 1950s, it's like an acceleration. This period is called the Great Acceleration. If you look at everything, everything speeds up, including construction, right? Construction is now almost 40% of global emissions. And if you look also at that graph, it shows you how much we extract to actually build. So it's like instead of, being this level up approach, we dig the materials and we put them in the buildings. So
Mhm.
what we can do in order to turn buildings into carbon sinks, we have to start thinking about materials that do not emit carbon, but the materials that sequester carbon instead. So, for example, now there is a huge retrofit wave with buildings and in cities. But what we are retrofitting our buildings is actually fossil fuel-based products and insulation. So we are extracting fossil fuels, we turn them into isolating foam, we put them in our buildings so that buildings are more energy efficient. But in this way, what we are doing is we're still extracting fossil fuels, we're still extracting emissions. And yes, in winter we have to heat the houses less, but then in summer when it's really hot, we have to use more airco because once the heat is in, you cannot get it out. If you start reframing the question and thinking, what can you do to turn buildings into carbon sink, you go back and you start thinking about bio-based materials because those materials are made out of plants that grow through the process of photosynthesis. They sequester carbon. And if you do not compose that plant, if you use that plant and turn it into a construction material, this way you are storing carbon in the building instead. And if you organize everything in a smart way, you don't need to cut that many forests. You can actually use fast growing plants. You can use them as rotation crops because they restore the land in the meantime. And then you can make circular materials with them that you put into buildings, which creates a win-win-win. And once we reframe that question, a lot of innovations come in terms of the types of materials that could be there, that are made out of plants, that are made out of mycelium, for example, that are made out of biochar. There's a lot of innovation going on in the space.
That's really cool. We already have our first question, but we'll wait till the end to ask all the questions. But thank you for submitting that. We're going to move on. So, can you please explain to us what hedonistic sustainability is?
Oh, this is one of the most fun terms that I learned this year, actually. Hedonistic sustainability is a term that was coined by the Danish architect. He's actually a world-known architect and one of the most influential people in the world, according to Times. His name is Bjarke Ingels. And he coined the term of hedonistic sustainability, saying cities should not be just sustainable, they should be fun and enjoyable. So basically, if you explain hedonistic sustainability in simple terms, it's having fun while saving the planet, having fun while making our cities more enjoyable. I'll give you an example to understand this better. One of the first projects of Bjarke was a Copenhagen bath. So in the middle of the city, they cleaned the river and they created a space where people can swim. Actually saw that place this summer. Very beautiful. But this way they communicated to the citizens that you actually do not have to drive for an hour and a half to be able to swim. You can just go in the middle of the city, you can take a
Mhm.
swim there, the water is clean, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's sustainable. And this was one of the first projects that he did and very clearly showcases that we don't need to frame sustainability as a sacrifice. Sustainability is good for us and it can be fun at the same time too. So that's hedonistic sustainability shortly.
Mm. Thank you very much. And I think framing is very important for motivating people as well, which sort of leads quite nicely into the next question. So, how does it motivate them?
Let's first see how currently sustainability framed. Currently, sustainability is framed as a sacrifice, right? We have to give up our current lifestyle. We cannot do things that we want to do. The future is doomed. It's going to be extreme weather events. We are doing everything wrong as consumers, and we cannot make sustainable choices. We are always enfolded in guilt. This is kind of the narrative that we are hearing a lot, right? But this is the narrative that doesn't motivate people to do something. This is the narrative that makes them think, well, if everything is that bad, I'm just going to go to the beach and have an ice cream and enjoy life while I can.
Mm,
Well, in reality, sustainability is not that. Sustainability is a thriving future. It's when we have clean water, where we have clean air, where we have clean, healthy, nutritious food, where we maybe work less, like we see in a lot of countries, right? Where we have more communities, where we have more times with our families and our friends, and where the products that we buy don't break after 1 month. They last us for a long time. So in reality, sustainability is thriving, and that's how hedonistic sustainability, through the concept of fun, motivates people to take action because everybody is tired out of doom. Everybody now, because of the heaviness of the global news, just wants to have some fun in their life. And if we are able to tie the narrative of sustainability with this joy and the joyful future that we're moving towards to, we're going to have a lot more people join the board of climate action.
mm. Yeah, like painting a really beautiful vision for the future, basically. And I remember this the CEO of Causal, who's on the webinar, so hi. I remember when she was working in a city, that was her kind of um, way of working as well, trying to paint this really beautiful future rather than a doom and gloom one. And it works. So thank you. I think you kind of already answered this question when explaining the difference between gain and sacrifice, essentially. So I think we're going to skip past that one. But how can cities adopt hedonistic sustainability in their practices?
I'll give you an example on how to adopt sustainability. And that's another project of Bjarke in Copenhagen that I really love. It's called Copenhill. So at some point, Copenhill is actually a waste treatment plant. It's the top-notch waste treatment plant that takes city garbage and uses it for energy. Now the air that it spits out is cleaner than the air of Copenhagen. And what they wanted is to transfer the message to maybe make an educational museum that is going to explain how top-notch the technology is, how very advanced it is. And that's the message they brought to Bjarke. And here is what Bjarke decided is that, well, if it's a top-notch plant, then we need to do something to show people that they don't need to learn through a museum how how fun this place is. And they actually looked at the installation. It looked a little bit like stairs. And this way, they thought, okay, we're going to design a plant that goes like this. We're going to make a skiing slope on top of the plant. We're going to make a climbing wall, and we're going to make a running track right
Mm,
right through the plant, right? And I visited Copenhagen this summer as well. In the middle of it, there was a running race. People were at the bar, they were cheering for the runners. Then there was a cycling race with 35-degree slope, which is pretty crazy. And it's the atmosphere I've never ever seen in a waste treatment plant. I mean, what do you think when you think a waste treatment plant?
Mm,
dirt, waste, bad smell. This was something completely different. And this was really unique and really fun. Um, and I think a lot of cities can learn from that because I'm sure there are lots of examples like this around the world. I think it's all about reframing the question because a lot of cities are doing good stuff. A lot of cities are looking into sustainability targets. But if they add maybe one more reframe into that on how can we also make this project fun and enjoyable for the citizens, that's when the creativity can start flowing. And maybe instead of a museum, you can make a skiing slope.
mm. Yeah, that does sound incredible. Um, it sounds like Copenhagen's quite a vanguard city, so perhaps everyone should be looking to see what Copenhagen are doing sustainability wise these days.
They definitely have a lot of fun innovations, but a lot of cities are working on that. A lot of cities they have sustainable projects. I think now the only matter is how to make them more enjoyable, and that also helps to communicate why this project is sustainable and why it's so important.
Thank you. Um, um, oh, okay. So you've given an example of Copenhagen as a city, but thinking back to your time at MasterCard, or even after that, actually, it's up to you. Do you have any more examples of where organizations are making sustainability fun?
I do, I do. I want to share examples also from our work and also examples that I witnessed. Let's now move away from Denmark and cross Europe a little bit into Belgium. I want to share a couple of examples of that were run and coordinated by my colleague Frederick. One of them is cleaning polluted land in the city of Antwerp. So it's a project aimed at cleaning the land and using phytoremediation concept, plants to extract the pollution from the soil, actually to extract forever chemicals. Nobody has done it successfully in the world before, until Frederick. And you could turn it into a very serious thing. You can talk about phyto extraction and phytoremediation and
Mm,
differences in plants and go and talk about forever chemicals and all types of forever chemicals and how they work. But actually, what he did is he invited the mayor of Antwerp, who is now the Belgian prime minister, to see the project together with us. So we had a farmer that came in, he prepared the field and a bucket of seeds. The prime minister came with his filming crew. He was wearing a three-piece suit and then really, really big boots. It looked incredible. Uh, so we explained the project to him. I think he stayed for like 3 hours. And then he went on the field, with his filming crew and started spreading the seeds. Um, there were a lot of photo moments. He made a very funny post on his social media afterwards, because the plant that we use to phytoremediate is industrial hemp, which, by the way, doesn't have any hallucinogenic properties. It's industrial hemp. It's a very well forgotten plant that is amazing, and that's the one we used. And that's why he made a lot of funny posts on social media about it as well with his team. We also recorded the videos with a farmer who was saying, we're going to test now if our mayor actually is a good farmer. Overall, it was a very fun afternoon. It was a much better way to showcase the project than, sitting in a boardroom and explaining why it's good for the city, why it cleans up the city and is good for its citizens. It was just getting the mayor in there in the middle of that project sitting. So that was one. That was really, really fun. I can confirm that.
that's great.
Um,
Do you know if it was easy to get the mayor involved?
yes, it was pretty easy. Okay, it was also before the election year, so maybe that helped.
Mm,
Uh,
okay, okay.
but actually, if there is something new and innovative going on, usually it's quite easy. And also, I have to say, our current prime minister quite adventurous because that project was done with firefighters and emergency services, and we've heard from them that he also does the testing of those emergency services. Like, for example, they wanted to showcase their rescuing capabilities from rivers. So basically, he jumped in the river,
Yeah.
and they had to rescue him.
Okay. Okay. I thought you were gonna say that. Okay. So we also need really fun mayors as well to make this happen.
You need to be a bit adventurous, yeah, for sure. I want to give you another example as well, and that's an example where we launched a carbon negative traffic pole together with Traffic Road and the city of Lokeren. So Traffic Road is the company that makes traffic poles for cities, not the ones, of course, the ones also with the speed limits, but also normally the wooden ones that are cutting trees. They separate parking spots, for example, or cycling lanes,
Mm,
and there are thousands of them in every city. So we created a carbon negative traffic pole that is actually made out of hemp and made out of municipal waste. Um, which is solving a lot of problems. And the launch was in the city of Lokeren because the traffic pole producer is also from there. It was a whole nice press event, a lot of beautiful pictures, the baby finally being born. But also now we're seeing how we can turn that into experience and how we can help cities communicate that actually sustainability is fun. So, we're thinking of ideas of how you can make a walking or a running trail along this traffic pole. So how you can have hidden messages
mm,
on these traffic poles for people to discover, to turn that into experience. I think the more creative and fun we can be, the better it will be for the citizens. And then they can also learn about innovations that cities are implementing because cities are doing a lot. The question is, do the citizens really know?
mm, mm,
And maybe a last one that I'd love to share. This one is from the city where I live. And actually, it's the first one of the first projects that is led by my husband. He's also working in the city council. It's called the Salamander Walk. And the idea is that you have protected salamander communities and ponds done around the city, and they created a nature walk around it of 5 kilometers where kids can learn about salamanders, but they also have to gather letters along the way to compile a word. And we did this walk as a family, and the kids absolutely loved it because for them it's
mm,
creative. For us, it was, nice being out in nature, and also for the mental health and rest. And that's something you can do as your family whenever the weather is good. Once again, an example of how cities can, make even small things really fun.
mm. And again, going slightly off script here, Elena, but from your experience, has that come at more cost, the same cost, less cost?
Well, let's think about the projects. Let's go through one by one, right?
Mm,
If you look at cleaning up soils, and usually the city is the owner of the problem. They didn't create that problem, but they are usually the owner of polluted spaces that have to deal with. If you have to clean it in a traditional way, you have to most of the time excavate the soil, which costs around 800,000 euro per hectare. And basically, it's a lot of trucks going in and out taking that soil out, and then you need to substitute it with another soil, and then you need to find a landfill that accepts that soil because not many do and the capacities are full. If you do phytoremediation, um, approximately depending on the pollution, and of course you cannot treat super high polluted areas, but you can treat a lot of areas with that. It would be a lot cheaper, maybe 4 times cheaper, depending on the type of contamination, um, for implementing that approach. And actually, it will be a lot less CO2 emitting. In fact, you can even make it carbon negative if you turn the biomass that you make also into carbon negative materials. So in that sense, it's cheaper. Well, getting a few hours of a mayor, it's up to him to see where he wants to
yeah.
spend it. I'm not going to get into that, but I guess he
Yeah.
got some good PR out of that too.
Hmm.
Um, the second example, in terms of traffic poles, actually the cost is the same for the city, where they go, whether they go for an alternative that deforests or an alternative that actually solves a problem to municipal waste and regenerates land, the price point for the pole is the same.
Mm.
And for
Okay.
the third example, I mean, the walk is a walk. It didn't cost that much, but it created a new fun experience for the city.
Yeah. Thank you. Um, let's see what we have next. Yes. So, in your opinion, what is the first step that cities should take in their sustainability journey?
Um, the first step is understanding where you are, right? It's the same for cities, it's the same for companies. We need to have a point of reference in sustainability and calculate the emissions and all the other like nature degradation and other parts of the planetary boundaries and planetary health. That's the first step.
Mm,
Without this understanding, without understanding the emissions, without understanding the problems that need to be solved, there is nowhere that we can move to because we don't understand what needs to be fixed.
mm,
So that would be, for me, the very, very first step, understanding the emissions, understanding where they're coming from in the city, and understanding what are other problems need to be solved in the city, whether it's nature degradation, whether it's pollution or anything else.
mm. Yeah, that makes sense. And again, based on your wealth of knowledge and experience, how can technology help cities and particularly helping them reach their climate goals?
Technology is an enabler. I'm not gonna tell that technology is the only solution. I don't think that's the case. Technology is an enabler, a big enabler that can help us. I mean, you guys at Causal, you work helping cities calculate emissions, which is, we've heard from a lot of cities how painful that is and how they use in very lengthy Excel sheets, which have incorrect formulas in them. I don't think it's a pleasurable experience, right?
Mm,
But if you use software that is, quick, fast to understand, that helps you a lot to cut your time spent on that, then this way you can already see faster what are the actions that need to be taken. I'll give you another example. It's the technology that we are working on currently at Earth Plus, which helps evaluate land and see what you don't see with the naked eye, meaning what is the level of land degradation, what are the reasons behind, meaning all kinds of soil health parameters, and what is the economic loss because the land is degrading. And then it helps to understand what needs to be done actually in the future and what would be the return on investment.
mm,
If you just go and look at the land, you would not see anything. You would not see any change. However, if you use technology, you can, for example, say the salinity in the salt is too high. It's a silent killer. It's been progressing in the last 10 years, not in a good direction. Actually, our nature areas are going to
mm,
collapse if we don't do anything. So in this way, technology also helps to dive deeper into things. And often when it comes to climate goals and policy, technology is something that can help us understand. Let's take CO2 emissions. They're invisible. If if CO2 was purple, and every day the concentrations were increasing and the air around us would be more purple, we'd be like, oh, we probably need to fix it, right? I cannot see stuff anymore because it's too
yeah.
purple in front of me. That's the issue with climate. It's not always visible for us, and technology is there to help us see what we don't see,
Mm,
so we can take action. Maybe one more example that I want to give in terms of technology help, and it's a project that Bjarke also did. It's called Plan for the Planet. So during the COVID, he started asking himself, well, he's heard that we need 6 planets to live sustainably or to live at the same level of lifestyle, let's say like the Danes or people in Singapore. And he decided to understand whether that's true or not and what can cities do. So what he did is he looked at the global land, he looked at the global population, and he started to see, okay, how much land per person with this amount of population would we have? How much is allocated to cities? How much is allocated to agriculture? How much is allocated to renewable energy? And actually, he was able to piece together a plan for the planet, where with the same amount of people and the land that we have, people could have a lifestyle that the Danes have.
mm,
And his goal is to take that project further, where any city in the world, his dream actually, where any city in the world can go input those things and can see the plan for their own city on how they can actually meet planetary boundaries and have the lifestyle that everybody wants. And once again, technology is a big help here because it would help to make that process a lot faster.
mm. I might have to ask you for all of these references so that I can follow up with the webinar participants
I'll
because,
send them
yeah,
over.
thank you. Yeah, you've given some great examples. And I really liked the purple analogy that you gave. That makes it really real, actually. So, yeah. Okay, we've got 15 minutes left. I've got a few more questions, but I'm going to jump to some of the audience questions now because I want to make time for those. So the first question is, have you ever used digital twins to optimize the legacy value of your proposition on a city scale to accelerate their social and 2050 net zero objectives?
Well, if it's a question to me personally, I haven't used digital twins to optimize the proposition on the city scale. However, the project that we do on technology and AI for land, that's what it kind of does. It creates a digital version of the land ownership. So let's say we are in the first step of that journey, but not really fully into it. It's good that you're thinking about it.
Great. The next question is, how can we use hedonism to speed up the mobility turnaround? For example, how can a new hedonistic narrative motivate people to use public transport instead of their car?
Oh, that's $1 million question.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It really is. I believe we have to understand how to make public transport easy, how we can make it cheap. Because sometimes when we look at the cost of the trains, for example, in between different cities, it's a lot more expensive than to take a plane or to take a car. We need to make it, easily accessible, whether, you don't need to go far to catch a bus, for example. This bus needs to be enjoyable, it needs to be clean, and it needs to cost a lot cheaper than car, for example, or driving a car. I think we need a lot of creativity in that space because often we have this push for people to use the public transport, but the infrastructure is not there. In a
Mm,
sense, it's not close to their home. It's not good enough. Like we have to consider all these different options and put the puzzle pieces together. I believe it's a good question. We need to keep brainstorming about it. I think maybe
mm,
we have to bring together different cities and see what are the experiences that they have to speed up the mobility turnaround. We could probably learn from Bogota. There is a lot
mm,
about mobility in Bogota in a book called Happy City. Really love that one, by the way. There is a lot we could learn from Paris and seeing how Paris is turning around the streets, making them more green. I mean, Champs-Élysées, it was unbelievably changed from the last time I saw
mm,
it. We could learn from Copenhagen and the way they use bikes everywhere. We could learn from the Netherlands on how actually they have, bike parking stations at the train stations and so much infrastructure where you can use a bike and ride around beautiful places that you cannot take by car. So
mm.
that should be probably a gathering of a lot of examples of cities around the world and seeing how they've managed to turn things around.
Yeah, I think Paris is a good example because they've become a lot more green. And so maybe part of the answer to this question is showing the public what can be put in the city in replace of a road, for example, like something else good that you can get if you decide to take public transport. Um, yeah, perhaps that's an angle. There's also the concept of a 15-minute city.
Oh, yes.
So how can we bring local amenities within 15 minutes of an individual so that they don't have to use a car at all? But I think that's quite a huge infrastructure change and maybe not easy. Um, but if I think specifically about hedonistic sustainability, yeah, maybe it's more about showing them this is what will replace the road if we can reduce the number of cars. Maybe.
Maybe, fun places can pop up. For
Mm,
example, I keep nagging my husband. Right in the middle of our city right now, you can drive with a car. There is a church. There is, a pharmacy, but it only becomes an active space when they block the center for events like fairs or like markets, etc. But imagine, okay, if you have cars driving around just a little bit, and in the middle you'd have spaces that are popping up, like cafes where people can sit on the street, maybe some fun places for people to spend time with, a new bakery. Then there would also be more social place. People would come together in there. I really loved, by the way, during a trip we did this summer. I don't remember if it was Denmark or Sweden. They had a children's corner in the church with Legos and some drawings and things like this. So the question is how do we use also these public spaces and how can we make them enjoyable for any types of citizens from big to small
Mm,
and take things creatively.
mm. Church has changed since I went. That's good. I have another question here. This was from quite early on in the webinar, and I think it's specifically talking about Earth Plus and whether you've commercialized your business model.
Yes, it's a very good question, because we need profitable regenerative businesses, right? Otherwise, it will never work. How we've commercialized it is material sales. So of course we make materials, and these materials then go into buildings. And then the second way to bridge the pricing gap, because construction is a very low margin business. Um, to bridge this pricing gap, because traditional materials are very scaled, there is also carbon credits in buildings. The EU is actively working on that regulation, and in general on carbon, it's called carbon farming. They are preparing to open their own registry even for carbon credits. So that's another way to kind of stimulate that transition. Another way that we can commercialize the business model is through these carbon credits in these materials and buildings.
Okay. And are you optimistic for the future?
Of course I am. I mean, we don't have any other choice. If we wouldn't be optimistic, then we can just all lay down and, not do anything.
True, true. Um, okay, I'm gonna jump back to the script, see what else you've got. Oh, yeah, this is a nice one. So, what's your favorite fun tip for enjoying sustainability and maximizing impact? So, this can come from your personal life, your work life, wherever.
Um, I will share something that I got a chance this summer to be at an event and meet Sadhguru. He came to speak. It was a huge audience, a conference called Love Tomorrow, which is a sustainability conference at the largest musical festival venue in the world, Tomorrowland. It literally happens just the day before the event, which already makes sustainability fun because you have, these crazy stage installations and speakers talking about sustainability. And Sadhguru was one of the speakers this summer. And somebody asked him, well, how can we, help fix the world? And he said, well, you cannot fix the world if you don't fix yourself first. And he gave this analogy that if I have a dirty hand and I shake your hand, Steph, with my dirty hand, I'm going to make you
Mm,
dirty too.
mm,
Meaning, first, we have to find fun and enjoyment in doing what we do ourselves. And only then would be able to bring that fun to other people in the projects around us. So for me, that was maybe the not most the most fun tip, but also interesting tip on how we should approach sustainability that starts with us. And working in sustainability space is often mentally draining because of the bad news, because of, a lot of pressure, because we want to achieve things much faster, because we see the world running off a cliff. But we have to pause, we have to think about ourselves, we have to rediscover that fun in small little things that we are doing. Maybe, doing an evening out with the colleagues or a little dance in the office. I don't know. Think of
mm,
different fun moments that you could have throughout the day to make this journey really enjoyable.
mm. Yeah, that's really well put, and I also think starting with yourself extends outside of sustainability as well, actually. I think it's quite good life advice in general. Um, okay, we have 4 minutes left. Just a reminder that we still have time for questions from the audience. So there's one more in the queue, but please, if you have a burning question you'd like to ask, send it in the Q&A. Um, oh, here we go. This is a bit more about where we can find you, Elena.
Definitely on LinkedIn or at earthplus.eu. That was an easy, fast question.
Yes, yeah, that's good. And you do these great videos on LinkedIn where you focus on like positive sustainability stories around the world, which is great. So I see that popping up in my feed very often, and it's great. Um, okay, so going back to the Q&A, we have two more questions. So donut economics is evolving rapidly. Cities are increasingly complex spaces. What might the future 100 years look like? Wow, that's a good question.
It's a very good question. An honest answer to that would be I have no clue. Um, I'm hoping that would be the future that we create and envision. That's why we so badly need this positive sustainability future vision where we're thriving, where the cities are enjoyable, where the products that we touch are not damaging but regenerative, where we have more time for each other, where we have nature all around. Um, so whatever future we imagine and shape the narrative now, that's how those 100 years will look like. But I think it's a great exercise. I'd love to learn afterwards everybody's thoughts on this.
Mm. So yeah, we're still in control of that 100 years, so up to us. Um, Another question, living in a very status-driven country, I wonder how we can make sustainable behavior and products a status symbol.
It's a very good question because sometimes sustainability is a status symbol already. For example, I was in one of the most sustainable hotels once. I asked for a birthday gift from my husband. It was actually a hotel in Switzerland, in the nature. It was very expensive. So sometimes sustainability is already status driven and expensive, and then the question would be, how do we make it mainstream? However, how we can make sustainability a status symbol, I think it has a lot to do with marketing and promotion. Um, let's take an example of La Bubu doll. Billions has been spent already. Consumers buying that doll, right? Why has that happened? Because there was a lot of marketing put into it. Whether we like it or not, a lot of our choices are influenced by marketing. So if you would frame sustainability as a status symbol and use a lot of marketing for it, then it would become one. Maybe just to give you an example of how marketing impacts things. Um, One of the latest movies, I don't remember the name, but the one that won the Oscar, the marketing budget of that movie was 10 times more than the production budget of that movie. And
Mm,
that movie won an Oscar. So very often, if we want something to be sexy, if we want something to be desirable, it's actually about the marketing that is spent on it. If nobody knows about it, nobody would desire it. So that depends on how we shape the narrative.
mm. Thanks, Elena. We have one more question, which I hope we can squeeze in before we wrap up. But how can we apply sustainability practices in places that don't have basic needs covered?
Right, that's a very good question as well. I will give you a couple of examples that I've seen around the world. It's not an easy question. When people have to think about bringing food on their table or feeding their family because they're hungry, they would not have sustainability on their mind because the basic needs are not covered indeed. A lot of countries are actually moving in an energy transition immediately to renewable energy, skipping fossil fuels. For example, in Nepal, in places where villages don't have electricity, they're jumping directly into solar panels. There is a small water hydro turbines as well. So renewable energy is often a way in places where basic needs are not covered to skip the whole fossil fuel infrastructure and to make really small scale electricity, which is much greener. So we have to look at solutions like that. How can we make this transition for them to cover the basic needs and make it sustainable right away? The second example, I was really struck by a documentary I've seen in Africa, and they have this amazing nature reserve. I have to recall the name of that park. But they've noticed that the park was deteriorating because there was a lot of poverty around it. So people had to cut trees in order to sell them for peanuts, for nothing, to be able to have some money to buy a little bit of food for their families. So actually, that protection of that park was a lot built on involving local community and giving them jobs, on looking into how without destroying things in nature, they could have food on the table. And the whole philosophy is built around it, that you have people living around working as rangers in the park, that you have school with little girls being educated, thanks to the park financing. So it's a lot of bringing the community and the needs of people together and seeing how they can be met. And this way, instead of thinking how to prevent the damage from happening, they're thinking on how to make these people meet their needs, but also protect the places that are around them. This is, of course, not a story that happens everywhere, but I think this is the stories that we need to create around the world.
Well, thank you very much. We've actually run 2 minutes over, and we've had the Q&A session already. And I think I may have been really cheeky, yeah, and put the QR code there again to follow Causal. Um, but Elena, thank you so much for your time over the last 45 minutes. It was really insightful, and I learned a lot from you just in this session. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Steph, for inviting me. And thank you all for your very thoughtful questions. I'm wishing you lots of success and fun on your sustainability journey.
Yes, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. The recording will be sent to you soon, at some point this week. So, see you.
Thank you. Bye.